Yesterday, we looked at the GameIndustry.biz article and the comments made from the CMA and the Microsoft responses. Today, we're going to look at just the Microsoft responses that The Verge posted and talk about which ones are founded and which ones are blowing smoke. Let's dive in right now. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, please, because it helps the channel grow. So first things first, we're going to be talking about the responses to the CMA acquisition. And apparently Tom Warren is the only one who posted the full text thing. So Tom, thank you for posting these. Let's read what they said. So here are the replies. The CMA's concerns are misplaced for the following reasons. These are Microsoft's responses to the video we recorded yesterday. I'll link to that at the end of the video, so stay tuned to the end of the video if you want to watch that. So Sony PlayStation has been the largest console platform for over 20 years, with an install base of over 150 million consoles, making it larger than Nintendo and more than double the size of Xbox. I'll give them that it's larger than Xbox, but bigger than Nintendo, I don't know about that one. Sony's been doing pretty well, but I seem to remember this thing called the Switch that did quite well. But anyway, Sony engages in conduct today which is reflective of its market power in console gaming, including increasing prices of its console without fear of losing market share, and a snip thing for some reason. So anyway, so Sony engages in contact today, which is reflective of its market power. So we know that they have raised the price of the console. They increased the price of their games. They've been doing a lot of stuff that some people aren't very happy about. And what's strange for me is that the CMA is investigating Microsoft, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a watchdog group that is going after Sony for a lot of their practices also? So the fact that the CMA is basically just taking what Sony is saying at face value and going after Microsoft is a bit strange for me. And I think this is a very strong point by Microsoft that, yeah, Sony is engaging in some conduct that should be also looked at before you take their words at face value. They're restricting games from Xbox. They're paying people not to release things on Game Pass. They're spending a lot of money to deter Xbox. And I'm not particularly mad about that. What frustrates me is when they say, oh, we're so vulnerable, but they're also engaging in practices that are not the nicest, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, the suggestion that the incumbent market leader with clear and enduring market power could be foreclosed by the third largest provider as a result of losing access to one title is not credible. There are more than 4,000 games available on PlayStation alone. 100% agree. Even if, and Microsoft said this in the GamesIndustry.biz article, which you can check that out right about here. I'll post that for the mid-roll. Remember, 3 minutes, 25 seconds. Anyway, you can go check that out now or watch it later on, but it's accurate. Sony could lose all the revenue from Call of Duty and still be on top in the market space. I think it accounts for around $1.5 billion in sales for them. So even if they lost all that, they would still be in first place. And that's just the profit portion, right? The fact of the matter is, though, it's going to remain on their platform. So they're still going to make a ton of revenue for it. I think that argument is bizarre from Sony, but apparently it's working. Anyway, the evidence shows that less than of PlayStation's monthly active users, MAUs, are playing Call of Duty. Even without all of those gamers, a highly improbable outcome from a hypothetical foreclosure strategy, the PlayStation gamer base would remain significantly larger than Xbox is today. Than Xbox is today. That's absolutely true. So yeah, even if we're on this one here, even if they took away everything, it would remain the same. Since the transaction was announced, Sony has acquired several game studios, including Bungie, developer of the popular online game Destiny 2. And here's the thing. Nobody batted an eye when PlayStation acquired Bungie. It makes sense. The games are going to remain multi-platform. It's basically the same deal as the Activision thing on a smaller scale, of course, because it's not $70 billion, right? They're not taking Destiny 2 away from other people. Destiny 2 is a massive game. It's been like on the top 10 Steam since it came out, basically, and nobody cares about it. And it's just bizarre to me that there's all this focus on Call of Duty, and Bungie's like, hello, Destiny 2. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's completely bizarre to me that that's just totally fine. Like no stopping, nothing, whatever. There's like, yeah, that's fine. $3 billion, go for it. Whatever. You're on top. Sure. That's fine. So that one's weird to me. Anyway, Haven Studios, Lesson Gul and Savage Games, and a minority interest in From Software, the developer of the biggest game of 2022, Elden Ring, among other hit games. This complements Sony's existing minority shareholding in Epic Games, publisher of Fortnite, strong first-party game catalog, and extensive portfolio of exclusive arrangements with third-party publishers. There were over 280 exclusive first and third-party titles on PlayStation in 2021, nearly 5 times as many as Xbox. Now, I will say this about that statement. So there's a few things Microsoft says in that statement that I agree with. One, I think the Bungie thing wasn't even looked at. Nobody cared. They just like, oh, it's going to remain 30 party. Fine. They're doing the same thing for Call of Duty, which everybody's making a fuss about, but that's a big deal for some reason because it's going to go on Game Pass. I think the Game Pass angle is what it really is about. And that's why Sony is so upset. But I am in the camp where I don't care about all these acquisitions. I don't care that Sony acquired Bungie because even if they would have brought it exclusive to PlayStation, they wouldn't do that, right? Because Destiny 2 is so ingrained with being multi-platform, with having a welcoming community and everything. Call of Duty, Xbox also says that it would damage the brand name Call of Duty and damage the Xbox brand name if they were to do that. So they're not going to, just like they didn't with Minecraft. Where this sort of falls apart is at the end of the statement. They say there were over 280 exclusive first and third party titles on PlayStation in 2021, nearly 5 times as many as Xbox. To be fair, Xbox could have paid more to get those exclusives, just like Sony did. They could have managed their studios a little bit better to ensure that they had the same amount of exclusive titles coming out in 2021. Xbox is at a point where they actually need to figure that out. They have so many studios making so many different things. They need to hit that release cadence with major AAA things the way that Sony has. Now, Sony, this year, what was it? They had Gran Turismo, they had God of War, they had a game like Stray that came to their platform. But Xbox saying, well, Sony had more than us last year. It's like, I don't think that's a good argument. I don't think that Sony doing a good job is a good counter argument to the acquisition. So that last one, I'm not going to give it to Microsoft. Sorry. I think that one's a little flimsy because you could have done the same thing, and you did do the same thing with some stuff. But yeah, so that one I can't really give them. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. So Tom continues. He says, here's Microsoft trying to make it look like it sucks at Xbox and gaming. Last place in console, 7th place in PC, nowhere in mobile game distribution. The CMA provides no evidence that rivals rely on Microsoft's multi-product ecosystem for cloud gaming. The emergence of cloud gaming providers that do rely on Microsoft's multi-product ecosystem shows that Microsoft does not have the ability to foreclose competition. Consumer adoption of cloud gaming remains low, harming or degrading rival services would significantly set back adoption of this technology, protecting market-leading incumbents, i.e. Sony on console, Apple and Google on mobile, as well as Steam on PC. Xbox is a platform which is in the last place in console, 7th place in PC, and nowhere in mobile game distribution globally, has no incentive to do this. Instead, its incentive is to encourage the widespread adoption of cloud gaming technologies by as many providers as possible to encourage the major shift in consumer behavior required for cloud gaming to succeed. So they point out that they're last place in console, they're seventh place in PC, nowhere in mobile game distribution. Tom says the CMA thinks Microsoft has an advantage in cloud gaming with Windows Azure. Microsoft says nope. And they point out no, because they don't use that for like game streaming or Game Pass or anything like that. That's more for game development, I believe. And Microsoft, that's Microsoft's argument anyway. I don't know enough about it to say how I feel about it. But the fact that Microsoft is last place in console, seventh place in PC, and nowhere in mobile game distribution, I think that's changing. Like, it's in the progress of changing whether or not this deal goes through. I do think that will adjust. But again, they're just showing that these arguments aren't the strongest, and I think they do a good job of that. But yeah, I mean, that's all I really have to say about that one. Microsoft also claims keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation is a commercial imperative to the Xbox business. I would agree with that. They would lose a lot of money, and we talked about this yesterday. Some of this stuff we talked about yesterday, just offhandedly, I should mention that. Microsoft has no intention to take Call of Duty away from gamers, and indeed it has publicly committed not to do so. The value of Call of Duty depends on its community of gamers, the majority of whom are on PlayStation. Keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation is therefore a commercial imperative for the Xbox business and the economics of the transaction. As such, Microsoft has offered Sony a contractual commitment to continue supplying it with Call of Duty, including new releases with feature and content parity. The referral decision fails to explain why, in the CMA's view, Microsoft would make such commitments publicly and privately, which are also reflected in its internal documents, if it had no intention of honoring them. For closing strategies of the type outlined in the referral decision would alienate the Call of Duty gamer base and tarnish both the Call of Duty and Xbox brands, undermining the rationale for the transaction. Microsoft would place at risk over US dollars cut in annual revenue from the sales of Call of Duty on PlayStation, as well as substantial revenues from other Xbox games distributed via PlayStation. Microsoft has been clear that it is counting on revenues from the distribution of Activision Blizzard games on Sony PlayStation. It does not make business sense for them to make Call of Duty platform exclusive. They've done the studies. They show that gamers would be pissed if they did that. PlayStation gamers would be, Call of Duty gamers would be, and that's what's most important, right? Allow people the choice about where to play, and that's what they need to do in the near future. Or that's what they plan to do if they were to take Call of Duty onto the Xbox platform. I was scrolling down to the next part. Tom says, bonus, Microsoft also says the CMA adopts Sony's complaints without the appropriate level of critical review, then quotes a tweet from me. Xbox plans to make the Call of Duty franchise available to more gamers in more ways than would have been the case in the counterfactual. While this increased competition will benefit gamers, it has not been welcomed by the market leader, Sony. In Theory of Harm 1, the CMA adopts Sony's complaints without the appropriate level of critical review. That I absolutely agree with. I don't know why literally nobody else complained about it, and we know that from the Brazil documents, which I can link to at the end of the video. But they just basically copy-pasted what Sony said and said, yeah, what Sony thinks is correct. Nobody else thinks that. Nobody else. And we know that nobody else thinks that because of what we read in the Brazil documentation, where they independently asked all of the different people who would be impacted by this what they think, and nobody cared except Sony. We get the CMA statements. They just adopted Sony's complaints almost verbatim, and that's bizarre to me. Like, look at it objectively. Now, if they came to that conclusion objectively, I don't know how they get there. I feel like they heard Sony's complaints and they put them in their complaint, and that bothers me because the angles are exactly what Sony said. It's not like unique to how the CMA phrased it. So that one is weird, and I do agree with Microsoft on that one. The CMA adopts Sony's complaints without the appropriate level of critical review. I agree with that. Indeed, industry commentators have noted that the referral decision is written like they want to protect Sony's #1 position in gaming while claiming there isn't much competition to Call of Duty. And On that competition to Call of Duty note, we know that the other people said, yeah, we have Battlefield. That's a competitor to Call of Duty. We have Rainbow Six Siege. We feel like that's a competitor to Call of Duty. Apex Legends, etc., etc. Everybody commented in the Brazil documentation, which is public, and I have a 3-part video series on that, which is weird, right? It does read like they're trying to protect Sony, and that's why people have had such a strong reaction to it. And then here's the subtext tweeted by Tom Warren, senior editor at The Verge on September 1st, 2022. Sony's install base at the end of 2021 was 151.4 million as compared to the Xbox installed base of 63.7 million. Sony announced an increase in the price of PlayStation consoles in the UK and other countries in August 2022. PS5 price to increase in select markets due to global economic environment, including high inflation rates. 25th of August 2022. Link available here. Microsoft confirmed that it does not have plans to increase the price of Xbox consoles. Link available here. And that is the interview they did with NBC. So that all is Microsoft's response to the CMA about this acquisition. I think they make a lot of good points. I think there's a few flimsy statements in there that don't really help their case very much, like basically saying, hey, we managed our studios poorly in 2021. Sony did a better job, so let us buy Activision. I felt like that one was a little bit weak. In 2021, Microsoft had just purchased Bethesda, so like that's going to take a while to get the ball rolling, so to speak. And yeah, I felt like that was the flimsiest argument in the whole thing. Now, I have a link that I want you to check out at the end of this video. It's the video from yesterday where we talked about the gamesindustry.biz article, but there was one more tweet, and seeing we're that far in, we're going to be going over the full text decision from the CMA. And one thing that I've seen going around is this tweet. Sony's requirements to allow Microsoft to acquire Activision for COD on Xbox. No extra content that is not available on PlayStation. No hardware enhancements better than PlayStation. No Xbox Game Pass benefits. I think that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think Xbox ever agrees to that. Limiting what their console is able to do so that it doesn't potentially look better than the PlayStation console. I would say this. I would say the hardware enhancements that they're able to do on the PlayStation would be fine. Sure. But if Xbox runs it better than PlayStation, that's on the hardware. That's not really on the software. So no hardware enhancements better than PlayStation is just weird. Like if the console runs it better, it runs it better. No extra content that is not available on PlayStation. That one's absolute nonsense because PlayStation has literally been doing that for like every Call of Duty. No Xbox Game Pass benefits. So Microsoft's not allowed to put their game that they own where they want. There's no way Microsoft agrees to that. If they agree to, well, actually, there's no way they agree to the first two. The Game Pass one, there's potential that they are going to have to agree to that only because the CMA has outlined that it might not be fair to Sony because Sony's going to be selling the game at $70, or you can subscribe for $1 or $10 a month for Game Pass and play all the Call of Duties, right? It's kind of a hard value proposition to beat, but we're going to talk about that more on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. And if you want to become a member, you can do so by clicking that join button. It is right down there. And thank you to all of these awesome members for supporting the channel. Now, yesterday I talked about the GameIndustry.biz article. Be sure you go check that one out right here. I'm going to put it on this side this time. You can subscribe over here if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to get out of here. Watch that video because tomorrow we're going to hit on the full text decision and pull out all the juicy stuff from there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you for the next one. Bye for now.